Hey guys, today we're going to be sort of talking about the trifecta of software development learning, which is the traditional education, software coding boot camps, and then of course self-taught. We're going to talk a little bit about the pros and the cons of each, and then we're also going to dive into knowing what I know now, what would I do and why.
Code everything.
Might I suggest after watching this video, if you're saying, hey man, that coding bootcamp thing sounds like a great idea, might you go ahead and check out Dev Mountain. You can get more information at devmountain.com. They got courses on web development, iOS development, QA, Salesforce. They got it all, baby. And you can get it too. Get that edumacation over at devmountain.com. I appreciate them sponsoring this channel. They've been a long time sponsor of us. Got nothing but love for them. Check them out, devmountain.com. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about, we'll start with college, then coding bootcamps, then self-taught. And then we'll sort of set it up with the pros and the cons, because I think it's important to set how my brain works and how looking back, knowing what I know now, what I would specifically do and why is solely based part off of who I am as a person, as well as what each environment entails. So start with college. So college is the most structured of the three, I would say. It is also the longest commitment in terms of just hard commitment. There's no way around it in terms of time and in terms of money as well. A lot of people, when they think about college, all they really are thinking about is getting a degree and thinking that a job is guaranteed for them at the end, which isn't necessarily the truth. There's plenty of people who graduate college with a lot of debt, can't get a job. And the thing I would suggest, if you are considering going to college for software development, computer science, software engineering, whatever it may be, is that you understand what it's going to take to succeed outside of college, as well as what it takes to succeed inside of college. Let's talk a little bit about the inside of college part. Well, as I mentioned, it's the most structured program there is. You're going to be investing probably a minimum 4 to 6 years for a full bachelor's degree, which is the minimum that is really going to be respected, which is some people ask questions about, is an associate's worth going and getting? No. That's kind of the cold hard truth is you go and get a bachelor's degree in computer science or software development because companies respect it, because it helps open doors along the way. And it's worth mentioning that as a self-taught developer, I can really speak to this, is that I've had phone interviews where they just assume that I had a college degree, and it got overlooked. I'm sure they're looking through tons of resumes, going very well, and then they ask you a little bit about college, and then you explain that, oh well, I don't have a degree, I'm self-taught, and you sell yourself a little bit, but the interview pretty much ends. They say, oh, unfortunately, a requirement for this job is that you have a college degree. And a lot of times you can't even get that first interview. So it is a real thing. There are companies, and I believe a lot of government jobs won't hire you at all unless you have a degree. Now, this is slowly breaking down and not a must-have, but you have to step outside of the norm of what is expected of a software developer to overcome this for some companies. Now, so with college, it's the most structured. You're not going to decide what you want to learn on your own. And to me, that doesn't sound like a good experience. But to some, I could understand how, especially in web development, you get so overwhelmed by everything that's out there that instead someone sits you down and says, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to learn, and a lot of people may enjoy that. And by the way, if you got a problem with me drinking straight from the bottle, you need to man up. This is my house. I'll drink from the bottle if I want to. I should grab a cup. I don't know. I'm a gentleman. Get a cup when you don't drink from the bottle. Do as I say, not as I do, right? But college, so the pros of college is that it is respected amongst a bachelor's degree in computer science, software engineering is what we're talking about specifically, is respected among the companies that are out there in the world that like them. And it does give you an air of, oh, hey, this guy might know what he's doing. Now, I would suggest that if you are in college that you do start a side project, that you do start learning, because one of the downsides of college is it takes them a very long time to update their teachings, to their lessons, their courses, and the stuff that you're going to be learning is going to be usually more theory-based, which is fine some of the time, but it's going to not be very practical, which is going to be the hardest barrier of entry, which is why you have to learn outside of work, right? You're going to graduate and think a job's guaranteed for you, but, it's kind of like the old adage, like, the entry-level job with 3 to 5 years experience, right? Or 2 years experience. And so, but college will open up doors in terms of internships, right? There's a lot of internship programs that are with colleges. And so there is some benefits to that. Now, what are some of the cons, right? We've talked about how it opens up doors through internships and companies just being willing to look at you. Some of the cons being a little bit more theory-based, typically not very practical, and some outdated to a degree. But also there's a very big time commitment. 4 to 6 years, I would say, is probably pretty realistic for a CS degree. You also have to account that that is what you are doing, not only in terms of what you're doing for the next 4 to 6 years, but also the fact that you're losing out on 4 to 6 years of potential resume experience, potential income. You're taking on a massive amount of debt. The average college grad, I want to say, in 2017 was graduating with $37,000 worth of debt. That's graduating. I'm sure they were actually paying off some of that through part-time jobs or whatever, that typically a lot of times you're probably just being a waiter or a bartender or delivering pizzas like I was in college, just to have some money for food. God knows that you're not paying much of that debt off delivering pizzas, right? Most of the time, I'm just happy to take a pizza home. You know what I mean? Have some money for the utilities, try to keep these lights on, and some free pizza in the fridge. So that is a massive thing. It's something that a lot of people, they just think that, oh, well, I'm gonna take this $40,000 of debt, sometimes more, sometimes less, but about $40,000 of debt on, and I'm going to pay it off through my degree. So now, essentially, you have this lump, which now, when you graduate, typically you will pay interest on your loans and everything. And so you're paying off this stuff for 5, 10. I work with software developers who make more than I do, who have 5, 6, 7 years experience, who are still, to this day, paying off their student loans. And it's a bit depressing and unfortunate, because you are strapped with this debt that you need to pay off. Now, you can make the argument that, well, you took this debt on to get a good job and pay for it, but also you may make based off our 2 other things we're going to talk about, maybe you don't have to take on such a large amount of debt. So you have to kind of weigh those options. Is that the cons are you're taking on a large amount of debt for a very long time, most likely. Now, if you can get scholarships or your folks are going to pay for it, hey, maybe it's for you, right? You don't have to take on that debt. That's something to consider. Part of the reason I was in college was my father was paying for it. And part of the reason I'm going back is I feel guilty that he paid for it and I didn't graduate. And here we are, boys, paying for it out of pocket now that we're a developer. So that's something to consider. So just summarize for college. Companies do respect that, may open doors, internships potentially. Cons, it's a very big time commitment, which takes away your time from going and learning the practical things, as well as potentially getting resume experience, as potentially starting today, starting tomorrow, right? Whenever you feel like you can. And that big amount of debt that I don't think a ton of people actually realize how big it is and what a big portion of your life your check will go to. And so how unfortunate that is. So something to consider. All right, so next up is coding bootcamps. What are some of the pros and cons of coding bootcamps? Pros. It is something, instead of going for the very theory base, and this can differ by coding bootcamp, but they traditionally they typically have a more practical aspect to them. They adapt their curriculum very quickly, because their programs aren't 4-year programs, right? They're 3-month programs a lot of times, 3 to 4, sometimes 6-month programs, where they're able to update their curriculum to the job market. And not only to the job market, most of these coding boot camps are regionally based, and so they will update their curriculum to be based off what's going on in Utah, for instance, what the tech community is like in Seattle and San Francisco. And so they will update their curriculum based off that, and very rapidly, right? If ES7, ES8, ES9, whatever it is, comes out, they're going to want to make sure that you know that, and they're going to have people there. And one of the things that I will say that I really do respect about a lot of coding boot camps is, as someone who would love to work in one and has looked into it, the thing that when most of them, and this varies by company, but all the good ones typically will require that the instructors have 7-8 years experience as a working developer, so that they can really teach you those hands-on things that you're really going to only learn on the job. And I don't know how many of my computer science teachers ever actually work. I mean, I do. And it's about 1/3 of my teachers actually ever worked as developers. And to me, that was something that I always found very unacceptable. I felt like if you are teaching me how to be a developer, I want you to be a developer. I want you to, at one point in time, be a developer. That people can have difference of opinion about, but I would say in coding boot camps, it is very nice that you do have someone who is teaching you that has on-the-job experience, and I really like that about that. So another thing is that time commitment. We already talked about the time commitment in a software degree program. In a coding boot camp, you're looking at 3 to 4 months typically of actual time in the boot camp. A lot of time. Now, don't go into a coding boot camp if you think you're just going to sort of jump around and just like, I'm going to get a certificate, I'm guaranteed a job. It's a bad mentality to have, man. You're probably going to waste about $10,000. But for those who are motivated and who understand that you're going to probably need to study 3 to 6 months before you go into the coding boot camp. Coding boot camps, a lot of people who don't understand coding boot camps think that you go to a coding boot camp to learn to code. And that's a really bad mentality to have. You should already know how to code when you go into a coding boot camp. Now, what a coding boot camp is going to do is it's going to take you from an enthusiast, someone who's just trying to learn to code, to someone who actually learns to code and can write production level code. At least that's the goal. So you're going to want to spend 3 to 6 months studying the technologies before you actually even go into the coding boot camp. From there, they're going to refine you, set some good habits, maybe teach you some frameworks, some of the latest tools that you didn't necessarily work with. So in terms of time commitment, I really see the time commitment about 9 months for a coding boot camp, even though you're probably only going to be on campus about 3 months, because I do think you need that prep to go into it. And then after you graduate, most coding boot camps, although there are some out there that will guarantee you a 3-month internship, I read recently, and it's a very, very interesting thing. But most coding boot camps, they do have hiring days. And from my understanding about when Engineer Truth went to Dev Mountain, about half of the students got hired within the first week and a half, which is pretty impressive, if you ask me, in his web dev curriculum. So, but I would say that's probably high to get hired in your first week and a half. I would also suggest that understand that when your coding boot camp ends, and a lot of people suffer from this, is that they take a break. They're like, oh man, thank God I just got done with this 3-month boot camp. I'm just going to take a week off. That is an awful mentality to have. You really need to stick at it, because this is something that's cumulative. So in terms of pros, time commitment, 9 months, not bad. Money commitment, you're looking at about $10,000, which compared to $40,000 is much smaller. It's a little bit higher when you sort of think about the per capita, right? The amount per time, rather. But $10,000 compared to $40,000. A lot of you may be able to pay for half of that up front, or all of it at once, or take out a smaller loan. And some boot camps have scholarships to help you out and whatnot. But learning relevant. The cons are, it is most definitely not respected in terms of what a computer science degree would get for you. It is not normally going to open the same doors. You're still going to have the barrier of entry to those companies that won't hire you without a degree. I would say that you can get some internships with it based off the organization, how well they run their program. Also, it is a quick way to waste $10,000 if you're the wrong individual going to a coding boot camp. And from my understanding, talking with, again, people who've gone to coding boot camps, talking with Matt, is that there's a good about third of students who enroll in a coding boot camp. They're people looking for a career change. They're people who see the 95% hiring with $100,000 salary sort of clickbait, if you will, and they just say, hey man, if I get a job and it's gonna pay me more than the bullshit job I have now, shit, I'll do anything. And they realize that this is not a I'll do anything job. You really have to sort of understand what you're getting into. And there's been tons of people that I've heard this from several people who have been in coding boot camps. You go and you see people like on campus playing League of Legends. That guy just wasted $10,000 as far as I'm concerned, because I promise you don't have time to play League of Legends every day on campus. So, but there is about a third of students who will go, they will enroll, and they see the sort of get-rich-quick scheme aspect in their mind, and they don't realize that it is just as grueling as a degree program, because now not only are you only doing it for 3 months, it's up to you to continue your learning after the fact. So if you are, they do have the structured aspect for those 3 months, but the previous part before isn't structured, right, as you're preparing, and the part after where you're continuing your learning isn't structured either. So if you really need a structured environment, a coding bootcamp may not be for you when you actually add it all together. Now, if you think that you can just need those 3 or 4 months to really just get you going, it's probably a good option, especially if you're later in life, you have kids, you have families, and you're like, look, man, I can't wait 6 years to do a career change. I just can't. I understand, man. So a coding bootcamp might be something that would work better for you. So those are the pros and the cons there. Self-taught. So this is probably the hardest category of all of them to go about, because you're on your own, right? You're you're kind of on your own. I'm a self-taught developer, and I can tell you it's been a journey in the very essence of the word. And part of that is that there is no structuredness. You have to really hold yourself accountable. You have to know what to study, and you have to know what's relevant, and you have to know what employers want. And there's no one who's going to really tell you that, right? And I personally am okay with that, because the way that I've always said how I know what to study, what I want to learn, I just go look at the job apps. Who's hiring? What are they hiring for? And what direction do I want my career to go in? If I want to be a front-end engineer, what are people studying to be a front-end engineer? Or what are people hiring for right now? If I were to go on LinkedIn and look at the top 100 front-end engineers in Seattle, in San Francisco, what is it that they want? That's how I've always gone about studying and learning and holding myself accountable, right? Some people can't wake up every day and say, look, I'm going to study web development. They need to go to class, right? Somewhere where they're paying money out of pocket, and that keeps them accountable. And that's okay. It's a different type of person. That's not the person I am. I much prefer to not learn the theory and learn the practical skills. But I can understand how the theory can be helpful. God knows it's helpful in the technical interviews. So as some of the pros is that it is a less structured environment, if that's what you need, because you want to set your own structure, right? Why try to force yourself to adapt to what somebody else says is good when you say, look, this is how I work. I work this way. I'm going to work within this way, and I'll be successful as long as I stick to it. Now, not everyone has that ability, and that's a major, major con, because a lot of people would, if they have to hold themselves accountable, they just don't do it. It's very easy to say, hey, man, Dylan, I forgive you, bro. You're a great guy, Dylan. I know you meant well, Dylan. I know you meant to code today, but don't worry. I ain't going to hold it against you. You say, Dylan, I appreciate that very much, sir. You're a great guy for allowing me to slip up a little bit and not judging me. I'm going to go out with the boys tonight. We're going to have a beer. We're going to do some other things that, depending on the state, may be illegal or legal. And, we're just going to keep it 100. All right. But you get what I'm saying. It's very easy to fall out of your system if you can't hold yourself accountable, right? If you can't wake up every morning or go home after work and do these things, and you don't have the same the same doors that are opening. There are no doors. You have to open your own doors, right? That's the thing is you don't have a degree. You don't have a certificate. You don't have, alumni. You don't have internship programs set up specifically for the self-taught developer. The self-taught developer has to open their own doors. So how might you go about doing that? Well, we have a separate video coming out next week talking exactly about that. But a few things is you have to show that you can code. You have to be an interesting candidate. You have to start projects, volunteer, maybe go and get some certs in your off time, right? Do Udemy courses, build up a web presence. There's a ton of things that you can do, but you have to go do them. And these are all things that would work great with the bootcamp, work great with the college degree, but that's just going to add on to and make you that much of a better candidate. You as a self-taught dev, you don't have a choice as far as I'm concerned. You need to prove that you are just as good, if not better, right? And so you are the one who has to, no one's opening doors for you. You are opening your own doors. And to do that, you have to work hard, you have to get creative, and you have to show them that you just got to stand out amongst the crowd. Now, that's a hard task for a lot of people because it's a lot of hard work. So something to consider. Pros, again, typically going to spend very little money. When I dropped out of school and I was studying web development, this may surprise some people, but I never bought a course on Udemy. I never, everything I did was YouTube videos. Everything I did was free tutorials. And I don't suggest not spending money on Udemy courses. It's actually one of the things I would change about how I learned to code is, money was tight, but you can always spare $12 for a course. I would actually have done that and learned some more relevant skills. But that was from dropping out of college to studying web development to getting a job. There was not a dollar spent on a course. There was not a dollar spent on Team Treehouse or Codecademy Pro or any of that crap. It was free materials, YouTube, building projects, and essentially just every day grinding, going to free meetups, getting some free pizza at some of those meetups. A lot of meetups supply food, so if some of you who are in the grind and need a free meal, just throwing it out there, learn and get fed. So it is one of those things where in terms of money, it can be very low, right? I would say that you could probably take $500, just a number, get a ton of courses on Udemy, probably 50, right? Around 50 courses. You do all 50 courses, you're a master dev if you actually build stuff outside of those courses on top of it and learn a ton of amazing things. But so the money aspect is there. The time commitment varies. So it's so hard to give a hard time commitment because you will need to be very accountable, and everyone goes at a different pace. And you'll need to understand how to handle when you get stuck, and how to understand how to transition, what to learn, and how to get help. When if you're in a boot camp, you're in a college program, getting help is much easier than when you're, look, man, I'm solo. It's just a team of me and I, you know what I mean? Like, so there ain't nothing but me and I here trying to keep it together, right? And me and I is keeping us accountable. Me and I is helping yourself. So you're going to need to learn how to Google, which is a skill you're going to need as a developer anyhow. But it's a much harder path for a lot of people. It is something that I have found that will make you a better developer because you do most of the time need to be able to have the skills to teach yourself and to debug by yourself and to continue your education as yourself. There's a reason that 90% of developers consider themselves taught, even though they have bachelor's degrees and bootcamp certs and things like that. Because you are essentially going to teach yourself after you get done with your bachelor's. You are essentially going to teach yourself after you get done with your boot camp. And you are, of course, going to teach yourself even after your first development job as a self-taught developer. So it's a much harder thing to hold yourself accountable, which is the largest issue. And this video has been going on about 23 minutes. So I'm going to wrap it up. I did say what I would do and why. I'm going to actually make that a separate video. It'll be a video after this. So I'll try and link both videos in there. Maybe I'll make this part 1 or something. But I appreciate you guys watching this video. I hope you guys don't think I clickbaited you or anything like that. I'm going to tell you what I would change and why. And I hope this sort of opened your mind up a little bit about some of the pros and the cons, some things to consider as you're out there preparing for boot camp, considering going to college, considering going the self-taught route, what it actually takes. The sort of strict schedule you have to hold yourself accountable to, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, in my case, I was delivering pizzas, and I could always have just kept delivering pizzas if I didn't want to. And there's nothing wrong with working a job, right? I delivered pizzas for about 4 or 5 years until I finally got my shit together. And everyone has to live their life, but just understand that you are the one who has to hold yourself accountable. And some people need a more structured environment, so I don't necessarily advise everyone to go the self-taught route, but I do think it is the route that was best for me. But let's go ahead and say thank you for watching this very long video. I hope you found it helpful, guys. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, share, support me on Patreon, all that good stuff. Check out my courses. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Take one last swig real quick for the homies who gave up learning code along the way. Hey guys, if you're interested in a nice JavaScript course, I just released my second course, and in here we're actually going to be breaking down JavaScript as a language, as well as give you some opportunities to solve some algorithms and build up your GitHub, as well as introduce you a little bit to Markdown. There's a link in the description to get the course for just $15 if you're interested. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.